Happy Friday, gang. We finally made it. I'm your host, Kayla Blakesley, and we are broadcasting live on Worldwide TV. And I say we finally made it to Friday because tomorrow is the big day, the Scottsdale auction in Auburn, Indiana. Right now, I just want to remind you to hop online to worldwideauctioneers.com. You get pre-registered, get all set to bid, do your homework, preview all the cars, and of course, you can come out here to Worldwide headquarters and preview them in person. If you can't do that, stay tuned. This is your backstage pass to the Scottsdale auction in Auburn.
All right, we're back here, Worldwide TV, talking about some more cool cars. So Rod and I just want to introduce you to a couple what I think are fun cars. And the one right back here, lot number 50,
yes.
Here Saturday, is an Omega Jag. And Rod, I think maybe it's an interesting car that ought to be explained. Maybe not all of us really know what or why this car even exists.
Yeah.
Can you give everybody a quick rundown?
Yeah, well, back in the day, obviously, people are familiar with the term you hear of, oh, it's a special, right? Especially in the racing world, and that's exactly the case here. So, race driver John Wilkes built this car as a racer back in the day, was owned and raced by other Formula One drivers, and what he did was he wanted a big competitive advantage like every racer does. And he set out to build this, and what he ended up with was a car that met all the rules and regulations, obviously race ready to go, but one of the cool things about this car that was a massive advantage is it only weighs 1,700 pounds.
Not much.
So it's a lot of power it's like driving a big go-kart in essence. So campaigned extensively in Europe. Many years, raced, all the racing logs are with it, trophies, everything goes with the new owner. And it's absolutely on the button and ready to go again. So it comes out of a great collection from a really knowledgeable Jag guy that's had it for a while. And one of the other things I like about this is that it hasn't been campaigned here. It hasn't been out on the show circuit. It hasn't been on the racetrack here hardly. So for somebody to buy this, they can actually take it out and use it. It's a very usable car.
So I may not buy this and look at it, even though it looks cool.
Yeah.
I could go vintage race it right now.
Yeah, vintage race it right now, but also you can take this just about anywhere because of the age group. So you're at 59, you're pre-61 for a lot of the big tours, the Colorado Grands, stuff like that. Maybe even the Le Mans Classic, I'm not sure, would be something that you could take this to. It'll be welcome everywhere, and because no one's really seen it here, it hasn't been unveiled, it's something that's going to cause a big stir, be a big crowd pleaser for sure.
And is this car, I mean, we know it's light.
Yes.
Obviously it's ready to go. Can I win in this thing? Like, is this going to be competitive?
You
with
can
the
win,
other cars?
and it did win. And Sir Jackie Stewart's driven this car. There's even a letter in the file that comes with this. It's pretty cool. That kind of recounts his thoughts about it. And one of the other owners of this car, I think that to sum it up best, as far as it relates to racing, he calls the car satisfactorily dangerous.
Fantastic. I like it.
Yeah.
That's good.
So it's a great car. You could take it on tours, certainly take it to the track. So it's another car, these days, everybody loves usable stuff, right? That's the trend in our entire industry.
Absolutely.
Is what can I use, what can I drive, what can I take? Street legal with a plate, lights, you can drive this around. It's well mannered when you want it to be, and it's a beast when you don't want it to be.
And this car is in good shape. I mean, it looks nice.
Yes.
But when I look at it closely, it looks like it has been used, which would kind of make me feel comfortable using it.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
Actually racing it, because as we all know, if we do hop out and race, it's not, for the trailer queens, it's often like you're going to get rock chips and stuff happens when you race, right?
Yeah, and hopefully all good.
Right. Right. Okay, well, let's flip over here. Similar vintage. This is lot number 38, an Allard. And again, Allard is not necessarily one of the most recognizable marks, but they're really cool cars. And maybe explain to everybody where or what Allard is?
Sure, absolutely. So Sidney Allard created the Allard. Le Mans veteran Sidney Allard. And what you get is what we call the hybrid. So you've got the European bodies, but American power. So these cars were built in a way such to assemble that, much like Carroll Shelby did with the Cobras. Carroll Shelby, everybody knows Carroll Shelby. Mm-hmm. Similar situation with what happened here with Sidney Allard. So what you've got in this is the power plant, and this is the CAD-powered Cadillac V8, which is generally accepted as the most desirable in the Allards, to have the big CAD power in here. And this car has a phenomenal history right from day one. So it's another car that no gaps in the history. You don't wonder where it was. You don't wonder what's real, what's not, everything's laid out. So guys that want good original real stuff, this fits perfectly into that category.
Yeah, and I'm a big Americana kind of a guy, so I really like the European and American, the hybrid thing, and I love those cars. And as I'm looking at this one, this car, its restoration is incredible. One of the nicest restored Allards I think I've seen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so painstaking process they went through to make sure that it is absolutely authentic in every way again. So it's good, it's ready, and it's ready to go. It's pre-rock chip. It's ready to go on the track if you want. And if you want to do that, take it out on the track and I wouldn't say trade a little paint, but certainly if you want to get it dirty, it's absolutely ready to do that. And another car again that also any tour you want to go on, you're welcome to go on just about all of them. And cars like this are even getting more attention and desire, and tours such as the Pebble Beach Motoring Classic, which I've done many times, one of my favorite tours, period.
Great. Fantastic.
Over the years it started as a lot of the older pre-war, and now there's more excellent stuff like this that are on those tours, and they're great tours to go on. So again, this checks a lot of boxes for me because of the authenticity of it and usability of it, and you really could take this just about everywhere.
And I think too, as we look at the condition, perhaps you do want to go vintage racing.
Yep.
You could acquire this car and maybe take it to some shows, some concours events, and do quite well because of its condition.
For sure.
And then go race it. You can certainly do whatever you want, but this car offers that. A lot of the race type cars sometimes, as far as the restoration and condition, are more race ready used as opposed to concours and race ready.
Sure, and it fits in that there's that little window. Guys at vintage race, there's kind of two classes. There's the gentleman vintage racer who will go out and exercise this car at speed, but he's probably not on the back bumper of somebody. He's probably spacing it out pretty well, and he's just enjoying the experience, having fun, and whatever. Maybe his corporation doesn't let him, do anything that's too big for insurance reasons or get too close. And then you got the other guys that are weekend warriors, and they don't care. And they will go in there, and they might, touch a little bit here or there, or do a little bumping. And either way, because this car was set up so right, it fits in both categories. You could enjoy it both ways.
Yep. So for all of the vintage race fans, concours fans, hybrid, really great history, lot of boxes ticked, as you said, and both these cars are selling Saturday afternoon right here at the Scottsdale auction in Auburn, and we're looking forward to it. We're excited for everybody to tune in and watch live and have a wonderful virtual VIP experience right here at Worldwide TV. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for hanging out with us here on Worldwide TV. I am your host, Kayla Blakesley. This is your backstage pass VIP experience to all things Scottsdale Auction in Auburn, Indiana. We're also hanging out with my good buddy Travis Levine right now, co-owner of Levine Restorations. You also practiced tax law at one point in your life. You were an attorney. You own a production company. I'm over here wondering what I've been doing with my whole life, you know. So, I mean, Travis, how'd you even get into this line of work?
It is truly in my blood. It goes back generations, really. My grandfather worked at the Studebaker Company for over 35 years.
No kidding.
And my dad and his twin brother were car guys growing up. You know, these were the kind of guys that they had an Electrolux vacuum attachment kit to be able to spray a car. You know, worked out of their driveway. They had to build their cars, you know, to drive them when they were kids because they didn't have a whole lot. Mm-hmm. And my mother was also a bit of a gearhead. One of the most brilliant ladies you could ever hope to meet. Wonderful person. When her and my father met, they decided that they wanted to restore cars. And this was over 47 years ago now. So in 1974, my parents restored their first vehicle, which was a Triumph TR250. And I think there might be a video of it here. This is when they started to inspect this car. And this was actually sitting on the side of the road in the hometown that we grew up in Napanee, Indiana.
Wait, time out. So were they just driving along and they see this vehicle off the side of the road and say, hey, let's restore this, honey. Sounds like a good project.
Absolutely.
Wow.
They more or less restored that car in a size, if you could see this set, if you were here, you would see how small this space is. They restored that car in a garage about this size, a single stall garage in Napanee, Indiana. And it turned out that that car was known to have been around, and a gentleman that had known about the car before and saw it after said, is that the car that was sitting on such and such street? And through the grapevine, they got connected with a collector by the name of S. Ray Miller. And S. Ray Miller was a large collector based out of Elkhart, Indiana. And so over the course of 25 years, they restored about 39 of the 41 cars in his collection. And over that course of time, they really worked their butts off. I am extremely proud of what they've accomplished. And one of the shining accomplishments in this career that they've had was their first trip to Pebble Beach in 1987, which I think we might have a picture of here.
Oh, yeah.
So in 1987, my parents took out a 1928 Minerva Type AF Transformable, and it was the first time that they had ever gone to Pebble Beach. It was owned by a gentleman by the name of Tom Lester. And for their first time out there, they actually won the whole thing. They won Best in Show.
You're kidding.
And that was obviously, to my knowledge, that may be the only time that's ever happened for a first-time entrant to win, restorer to win Best in Show. And from there, they worked extremely hard and have grown our company into what it is today. And it's kind of neat with this photo. This is a clipping from the local newspaper showing their work. And that was one of our early employees. His name was Marty. And if you keep rolling here, I think we've got a shot of my parents with Tom out at Pebble Beach in 1987, which I love the white suit. I wish I could pull that off.
Yeah, he's stylish.
And Mom's hat is fantastic. But that is kind of the early years, the first 10, 15 years of Levine Restorations was my parents really just growing this company out.
So here you are as a kid, you're kind of watching your parents do this, even your mom, you know, getting down and dirty, getting in there with the vehicles. So obviously it ran in your family. But you're extremely passionate about it as well. I mean, when did you realize this is in my blood too? I want to be a part of this.
Well, when I was a kid, my parents always encouraged me to follow my heart.
Mm-hmm.
And they never pushed me into this business, but as you know, as always works out, you find your way back home.
Ain't that the truth?
So I had a interesting path to coming back into Levine Restorations. I was a math and econ and finance undergrad in college and ended up going to law school at Michigan State and worked as a tax attorney in Chicago for a number of years.
We won't hold that against you, Michigan State.
And the opportunity arose to come back into the family business and to take what my parents have built over the last 46 plus years and continue to grow it on. So about 7 years ago, I decided to leave law proper and come back into the shop and just carry on the family tradition.
Are you glad you did it?
It's the best decision I've ever made.
When it comes to restoring cars, do you have some personal favorites or wild stories?
I mean, the really cool thing about these classic cars is they all have a soul and they have a story to tell. And I think I've touched on that before in these segments here, that you are not just restoring a car, you're learning about the history of the people that were involved in it, what's going on in the world around it when it was made. They're really a time capsule. But there are a couple that are really important. Obviously, the Minerva is extremely important. And here's a great example of the Minerva. This was actually purchased by a fantastic client of ours, a great friend, a gentleman by the name of Jack Boyd Smith Jr., who is the owner of the JBS collection. We actually re-restored this Minerva, and that car went out to Pebble Beach a couple of years ago here, took a best in class. And then it went over to Villa d'Este in Italy the year after that, and then it went to the Hampton Court Palace Concours. So this is a car that's been near and dear to our family's hearts for a long time and has gone all around the world. And it's been with, this time around, with just an incredible friend of ours and a fantastic collector. So that is a car, for example, that's extremely important to us. We restored Al Capone's lawyer's car.
Oh, cool.
It was a
neat.
model J. Duesenberg. It was a Murphy disappearing top, I believe, J. Duesenberg. We've done some, I think there might be a few more here. This is one that's more recent for us. This is incredibly special to us. This is an L29 Cord Brome. And if you flip to the next picture, you can see the condition of this car when it was found by the owner, who also is a fantastic gentleman.
So are they pulling this out of an old barn?
Yes, they are.
So barn finds do in fact still happen. That's a thing.
They do. They're a little less prevalent now than they were maybe 30, 40 years ago, but there's still a lot of incredible gems to be unearthed out there.
Yep.
So the interesting thing about our shop, and a point of pride for us, is that, you know, we've done kind of a wide array of things. And I'd like to preface that by saying we're honored to work in this industry that we do, with the types of restorers that are out there and the fabulous people that steward these cars along and put their blood, sweat, and tears into carrying on the tradition of these cars. And so we're really honored to kind of touch on some different communities and bases when we go through our restoration process, but there are some that are pretty neat to us. This is a project that we did back in 2008, actually started it several years before that, and the owner of this car, who has become a great friend of ours and really family, this truck I should say, came to us one day and said that he wanted to build a truck for the Detroit Autorama, which is kind of the World Series of modified or, you know, custom automobile building. And as you can see, it was pretty rough when it arrived, and this thing actually ended up becoming what you see below, which it's a 46 Chevy as the base of it, but more or less every inch of that car was touched upon or modified in some way or the other. And it ended up actually being the 2008 Grade 8 finalist, one of the 2008 Detroit Autorama Grade 8 finalists. It was the 08-09 season, I think it was the Clean Tool Legends Cup winner, which is a big deal. I mean, that thing won awards all over the country, and it actually ended up being the banner truck for the awards for the next year, which we were really proud of.
Of course, as you should be.
So, you know, this is kind of the other side of the restoration coin, which we were really proud to be a part of.
Did the owner pick that color, or how did you come about to doing this like almost lime green
so
shade?
We actually worked with an artist to kind of do renderings. This kind of in some ways predated using Photoshop, which is what we do now to do color schemes and really visualize things. But we actually had a couple of color samples that we really loved and decided to go with that. And it's really a very subdued, beautiful color combination when you see it in person. Like the truck bed is lined with Alcantara leather. It's
fancy,
and it's a weave pattern. I mean, truly, this thing is over the top. If you flip that car over, the top side looks as good as the
just as pristine.
Yeah, and you have to for that kind of competition. Some other ones that we actually do quite a bit of muscle car. This one is actually one that's also extremely...
Loving the colors of this one, speaking of the colors.
And this is a car that was the way that this was made at the factory. So this is a 1970 AMC Javelin SST Trans Am. And the history behind this is pretty incredible. We actually have a little documentary that we did on it. But the gentleman that owned this car from about 8 months old bought it off of his buddy. They were both Amish.
Wait, I'm sorry. You said he's owned it since he was 8 months old?
Since the car was 8 months old.
Oh, since the car was 8 months old.
If he was that would be pretty impressive.
Yeah.
He bought this off of his buddy when the car was 8 months old, and he's owned it ever since then. And he brought it to us to do a full restoration. And this is a rare car. They only built about 100 of these, and there are only, I think, maybe 40 or so that are known to exist, 40 to 50. And it's an extremely special car. And this car is one that has won, oh gosh, an AACA special award in its first outing. It was an AMO perfect score junior in its first year. We're going back for the Nationals this year. This is a gold award winner twice at the Muscle Car and Corvette Nationals. It's won a lot of awards, and we're extremely proud to work with this. This is a great example of the community of AMC enthusiasts and restorers out there. Some of the greatest people you could ever hope to work with. It's a huge family, and it's been just an absolute honor to get to be friends with these guys.
What a great job.
Oh, they're incredible. I mean, you truly meet some of the best people with this kind of stuff. Here's a little segment, I guess, from the documentary.
Wow, what is that? It was a red, white, and blue Javelin. So I remember going out, meeting them, and let me sit in here a little bit. I knew that sooner or later he will have to sell it if he's going to go Amish. You have to sell your worldly things to get baptized, and in order to get married Amish, you got to be baptized Amish. I thought, shoot, this is my chance to get one like that. I liked it. Then I had a friend, he had this magazine, a muscle car magazine, and he said, look, Fritz, opened the page and it looked like, I said, yeah, that is it. That's my car there. He says, are you sure? I said, well, yeah, why? And he said, well, there were only 100 built. Said something in the magazine, you got to look at the door trim and the color code and stuff. Said if those 3 items match, you got the real one of the 100. And so it did match. In '86, I decided to restore it. It was just a mess. I mean, I had quit driving it. I had about 3 different people that said, oh, we'll restore it because it's a special car. Then it'd sit at a place for maybe about a year or so. And finally, I gave up on that and parked it in one of our warehouses in Shipshewana. And then I found out about the museum in Shipshewana. I asked around, I said, who restored these cars? And then they were saying Eric Levine and his family. And so I got a hold of them. What they've done for me, my car, is unbelievable. That was what I was after, is try to make this car look like new. And then their son Travis, when he said, I'm doing hours of research on that car, I thought, holy moly.
AMC, they were headquartered just outside of Detroit in Michigan, and they had one of their main plants in Kenosha, which is where the Javelin was built. Javelin started in '68. They also started the Trans Am Racing Series in the same year. And in the process, they brought Mark Donohue over from Chevy at the time. He was a real famous race car driver. And when they came over, they did some paint scheme changes to the race cars. But either way, the car was just built essentially to celebrate their factory racing program. And this particular car was the rarest actual production street legal car that they made.
I asked him one day, how are you going to put this thing back together? He took me into a room and said, there's all the parts, and I was just, wow. If they don't get best of show, they're upset. That's the kind of people you want. When I seen how the judges crawled underneath the car with flashlights, I thought, wow, what are they looking for? And the head guy said, this car is nicer than new. Then another one said, well, it's almost too nice. Too nice? I had never heard of that, but I thought, holy moly, that's, wow. Mine's the first one and the only one I've ever seen that is this nice and restored. To fulfill a goal would be to win the Nationals. The fun stuff about it is driving it. Squeal the tires if you want to, or go fast. But I always had to watch what I did, because you get to know the cops by first name when you have a car like this. They always said, Fritz, if you do something wrong, if we don't catch you now, we'll get you later, because you're not going to hide with that car. That car does not change colors.
You can see in here, we took this thing out and filmed it and showed it performing. When we build cars, we actually build them to drive. Every car, be it Pebble Beach or something like this that we're taking out on the road and filming with, the Minerva, which is, I mean, that thing's got to be 7,000-pound car. We drove that through the tiny winding roads of Italy on a tour, which was probably a mistake in hindsight. My dad's shoulders were shot after driving it. But we build these cars to really have them, be a part of the motoring experience. So, we do things like that. We do a lot of European sports cars and whatnot. A lot of people may not know that. Right now, we have a 63 E-Type in the shop. That's a very special car.
That's what you're working on now?
Right now. This is actually from maybe a month ago or so, something like that, a couple of weeks. Rare color combination, interior color combination. This is a car that the owner, again, is just a fantastic gentleman that wants us to take it to the ultimate of historical accuracy. So we're extremely excited to be a part of this too.
When you say taking it to the ultimate of historical accuracy, what kind of work goes into that?
Things like where the original, pardon me, I'm losing my words here. If there are original marks, like the way that the welds are presented in the car from the factory, those have to be preserved, or the things on the interior that are marks from, if something didn't fit, they kind of hit it with a hammer and make it fit. It's all of the original production methodologies. You do your absolute most to preserve exactly the way it was done, from fasteners to finishes and everything in between.
Is that all information that you have up here?
Well,
or that's a lot of research that goes into this?
That's a lot of research, and that would be Jason. Jason has been
your research guy,
the lead on this. We kind of partition our restorations up with a team lead and a group, and we go through and we set out a game plan and we put our research together, and then we have a very procedural way of going about it. And Jason's the brain trust on this here. He has just amassed an incredible amount of information. And again, this is a fantastic community. The Jaguar group, they are brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And as you walk around this museum, keep in mind that there are so many brilliant restorers, again, that have dedicated their life to that. If it's the only car that they did, somebody put years and truly blood, sweat, and tears into these cars. And I see all this, and I am just amazed by the number of amazing people that are out here doing this work and preserving these cars. So that's kind of a little bit of what we do.
Let me ask you this. We're in the Midwest. We're in Indiana. And, what's it like being a car restoration company in the Midwest? That's got to present its own challenges.
It is, and I think that is something I am extremely proud of my parents for accomplishing what they have. You figure a lot of these shops started in the 70s. This was obviously pre-internet, and people that were collecting were looking at cars and restorers locally. And so in the Midwest, you didn't have the prevalence of large collectors and some of the more flashy and high, collectible cars and whatnot, and the individuals that were willing to put the money into it that it needed to bring them up to the level to do things like this. And so for my parents, when we were kids, we lived in our basement when we were growing up, and the upstairs of our house was more or less our restoration storage, and the garage was where we restored cars at until we moved in to our facility that we're in now. But it really came down to, I have so many memories of traveling to shows as a kid in Pennsylvania or Florida or California or Vermont or you name it, and it was just grit and dedication, and those two really working together with a fantastic crew of people that we have to grow through the limitations of being located in the Midwest at that point in time.
Speaking of barn finds that we were talking about, do you ever just kind of sit back and find yourself wondering about the future of what you do and the future of restorations?
Yes and no. I mean, I'm a thinker, so maybe I worry.
You don't say, huh?
Ultimately, just statistically, if you look at it, there are millions of cars that were produced in the classic era alone. And out of those, even if a small fraction were the super desirable cars, which, truly, I believe that any car is desirable, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. But there are so many cars that were out there that there's enough to go around for a long, long time. I still think we're going to find barn finds coming out of the woodwork.
I hope so.
I'm sure we will. And also, too, we're seeing a lot of cars that were done in maybe the 60s or the early 70s that were, at that point in time, restoration wasn't maybe so technically correct or historically correct. It was more of what the owner wanted, which is fine.
So you find yourself restoring cars?
Absolutely. Absolutely. When you're talking about cars that are nearly 100 years old, even if they were restored 50 years after the fact, the first time around, we're still 50 years. So wear and tear, materials, things wear out. We see a lot of that. So I look at this as, you see conservation of art pieces that are redone, right? And these are truly rolling pieces of art. And so I think you'll see more and more of that as the years come along, of cars that have been restored 30, 40, 50 years ago, or even earlier than that, coming through and being redone with new technology and greater proliferation of information on the very technical aspects of the car. So I don't worry about it too much.
I know you're engaged, and I don't know if kids are in your future, but do you hope that you can pass down this treasure of a business to hopefully maybe someday one of your kids or a nephew or something of that nature?
I think that would be a dream.
Yeah.
Ultimately, my fiance Liz and I have talked about this, and she's just wonderful and supportive. And if we have kids that decide that they want to do this, that's great. And
You're not gonna are you gonna nudge them in this direction?
No, my parents always gave me the latitude and the encouraged me to chase my dreams. And obviously, I ended up back here.
Came full circle.
Who knows? But as we approach 47 years, we're going to be at our 50-year mark before we know it. I'd love to see this go on for 100 years or more. That would truly be a legacy that I would be so proud to be a part of and am. I am so incredibly proud of what my parents have accomplished. I'm going to get emotional about it. But I'd love to see that continue on.
Well, it's special. It's definitely a little treasure, right here in the Midwest. I'm just so thrilled that you're sharing your story with us. And I happen to also know that all of these cars behind us here in this portrait, Levine Restorations restored all of those. Do you have a specialty? When someone rolls in a Packard, you're like, oh yeah, this is what we specialize in, or
We've done a lot of Packards. We've restored, I think, just on the underside of 40 classic senior Packards over the years. So we're very familiar with Packards. We're very familiar with Auburn and Cord. The Hudsons are a pretty special story to us. There was a gentleman by the name of Eldon Hostetler that was an incredible man.
Is that you in the blue suit?
That is. I'm sorry. We'll get to that in a second. But these cars are all very special to us. And there's one that's really important. And that car is this 28 Hudson Model O convertible sedan by Murphy. That was the first Hudson that was ever taken or allowed to be presented at Pebble Beach, and it actually won Best in Class. And so that was a milestone for Hudson as a mark, and we were completely honored to be a part of that. But because you go to Pebble Beach and places like that, occasionally you have to wear fancy suits. So that's what this is here.
That is one way to put that suit, a fancy suit. Okay.
This is neat though. This is our guest ownership group here, and in this we have my best friend Jason, who's also an attorney. Probably one of the most brilliant guys I've ever met. He's an electrical engineer from Notre Dame. He was a patent attorney in Germany, and I managed to twist his arm to come back to the shop and take on this whole adventure with me. And he is truly one of the most brilliant electrical car restorers you could hope for. I mean, the guy is he's a savant. And so it's been really special to be able to have a guy that's basically a brother and my parents here. And I wish I had a picture of our whole crew, but we have truly the most fantastic group of employees at our shop. And the crazy thing is 80% of them are then to the age of 45. Wow. We have young guys that are incredibly passionate about these
preserving
cars.
History.
Yes, preserving histories. Young men and women. They're craftsmen and artisans, and it's really special to come into work every day and work with my friends and my family and the wonderful people that we work with and get to do what we do.
Bringing it full circle here to the auction this weekend, what should buyers be looking for when they're about to make a purchase?
As I've hit on before, what is your goal when you're collecting? If you're looking to buy a car, what's your goal? Mm-hmm. Is it to use it? Is it to show it? Is it to preserve it, restore it yourself, have somebody else do it? Know what your heart says on that. Just like you would do if you were, using discernment to buy a piece of art. What's your purpose for it? And then, do your homework with it, talk to the right people, get in a feel for it, and make sure that you're prepared to take on what is really a stewardship role in bringing that car into the next generation. Well,
then on the flip side, what do I need to know when it comes to selling a car?
Well, when it comes to selling the car, it's what are you willing to part with? What's the value of the car to you, and what is it? What is that
sure,
number
but you
going to
gotta
be?
have some degree of expectation, right?
Sure, and absolutely. I think it's just being prepared for what the market will bear.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, sentimental value is great,
right?
But the market will always dictate the value of a car, and so come into these things as open-minded as you can. This, not every car is going to be a blue chip asset,
right?
But your enjoyment and I think fulfillment of knowing that the next person is going to continue on your legacy along with that, the legacy of the car, and then hopefully that'll just perpetuate and go down the line. I think if you take that attitude into it, that's really the best way to go about selling a car.
Putting you on the spot here, Travis. What's the buyer-seller experience been like here at Worldwide Auctioneers?
You know, as an objective outside observer, we've always had a very good rapport and relationship with Worldwide. We've watched a lot of auctions for a lot of auction companies, and I think that Worldwide does a fantastic job. They bring in great cars, they provide a great experience, and they have, you know, fashioned out their own little niche in this industry.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really neat to see how, you know, these are all companies and restorers that are in the same industry and compete together. But it is, you know, at the end of the day, we all have the same goal. And it's kind of neat to see how this fits into the grand scheme of the collector car hobby, because these auctions are incredibly important. They bring these cars to light in a way that private sales don't necessarily do, or shows that are not as widespread. So I think that Worldwide does a fantastic job of just creating a great environment to buy a car in. I think they do a good job with their customer service, and we've always had a great relationship with them.
Travis Levine of Levine Restorations. I've so enjoyed getting to hear your story and getting to know you. And of course, I've so enjoyed having you here with us to kind of share this experience on Worldwide TV. As always, you can get more details about the auction this weekend, get a full preview of the vehicles online at worldwideauctioneers.com. More to come. Worldwide TV continues right now. We are your backstage pass to all things of the Scottsdale auction in Auburn, Indiana. And I'm really excited about this next segment. It's the one I've been looking forward to all day long. We're talking about the Steelwood Woody collection. Now, in order to do that, had to bring along the experts. We've got Charlie Kuhn, Senior Specialist with Worldwide Auctioneers, co-owner of Worldwide Auctioneers, John Cruz, and the man, the myth, the legend, Nick Alexander, the world's foremost Woody authority. And Nick, I do want to preface this segment by saying we're piping in with you via Zoom. You are in Southern California right now, so thanks for being with us.
My pleasure.
All right, guys, I'm the facilitator here. You guys are all you know, the experts when it comes to this Woody collection. So there's 20 of them in this collection. Charlie, where do you want to start?
I'm going to kick it to John. He'll get us started, and then I'll chime in. And of course, we're going to be asking Nick a few questions and whatnot.
He's passing the buck, John. So, you know.
Well, hey, I think that the first thing I'd love to share is this is a relationship business. It's a passion-driven business, and you know, this collection is here because of our relationship with the seller. Charlie's relationship with sellers. He's worked very closely with him, and he's a great friend and a great human in addition to being a collector. But I tell you what, the thing I like best about this collection is that, you know, this fella put these cars together. He loves every single one of them. He knows every one of them intimately and individually. And when I go to buy something, I know one of the most important things for me is knowing that the last guy cared about it. And I can look at it and know which one's nicer or not as nice, but that passion and knowing that, you know, they were just cared for.
You want to know who you're buying from.
Yeah, and appreciate it. And of course, you know, being able to have Nick here is fantastic. And I think the biggest thing to me when you look at these Woodies, and Nick, this is a question for you. I don't think people realize the immense amount of work and additional work that it takes to own and particularly restore a wood-bodied car.
Well, because you take it entirely apart, it's painstakingly labor-intensive, and you have to have people that in our restoration shop, we had 7 guys, and they each had their individual area of expertise. And the wood guys had backgrounds in cabinet making and wood restoration, and they were very meticulous about taking something apart and putting it back together. I know the collector of this collection shared my passion in wanting to find cars that where the wood had not deteriorated to the point where it couldn't be restored. Henry Ford owned 280,000 acres of virgin timber in northern Michigan, birch and maple. He was the only car manufacturer that made his own wood bodies, and they were made out of first growth timber that, if it was cared for, never deteriorated. It's beautiful, beautiful hardwood. And it's, if you look at the grain and the patterns, first growth timber is much denser than later generations of timber, because they were in these very, very dark forests, very thick forests. And so the competition for sunlight was straight up. So the trees would grow tall, but they wouldn't grow out quickly because all their energy was to going up the tree. And so the density, each growth ring is very tight and close together compared to, say, a maple tree that you planted 40 years ago. So for me personally, to find a car that had original savable wood was the mother lode. That was the gold standard, and that's what we always shot for. We had the ability to make the parts if one or two parts had deteriorated, but we didn't ever deal with cars where they just made an entirely new wood body. We thought that the value and just the history of these cars, it was important to show the wood body the way it came out of the factory.
Yeah.
Is it rare, we've got a collection of 20 of these woodies, the survivability to have 20 in one collection, is that rare? Is that common? I mean, what's a value here in this 20 car collection?
I think this is, and Nick, chime in, please. I think this is probably one of the world's largest woody collections at the moment.
Okay.
I think, Nick, you probably had the largest wood-bodied car collection back in the day, 10, 11 years ago, but I'm pretty sure this is the largest wood wagon collection, and we're obviously honored to offer these for our consignor. Nick, is this one of the biggest collections out there today?
Since I retired, Charlie, I haven't kept track, but I know the consignor, and I can tell you that he was dedicated to making a quality restoration, to take his time and make the car as authentic as possible. The way we used to tease each other. We had two different philosophies. I liked my cars to look like they came just rolled out of the factory. This collector liked cars the way they just rolled off the dealer showroom. In other words, he had added white walls or outside mirrors or different accessories to the car that didn't come originally with it. But they were still in the new car showroom, but not from the factory.
So he liked to add a little bling.
Half the battle in car restoration is finding the right car to restore. A car that hasn't been rusted out, that has been well cared for, and has not been crashed. And it makes the whole process easier and a better end product.
Well, let me ask you this. I kind of want to pick your brain. What's the allure of owning a woody? Because I got to be honest with you, when I think of a woody, I think California, I think surfers, so what's the allure of being able to own one?
Well, for me, my first job was in a Ford dealership when I was 14 years old. I was what they call a get-ready boy. When the cars would come in from the factory, we would see that they were running right before the customer got the car. And if they wanted accessories, we would put the accessories on. And I made friends with the used car manager. And by the time I was 16 and got my driver's license, he would call me if there was a car that came in trade that he thought that I could make a few bucks on. The old clunkers that were the $75 cars and the $100 cars. And a woody compared to a convertible or a hardtop was cheaper because they were beat to hell by then. Nobody took care of them. The surfers got a hold of them. They were falling apart. So often the cars he would call me about were old Ford station wagons. And that's how I kind of fell in love with them. And as I got older, I wanted nicer ones. Somebody sent me a picture just the other day of my first Woody. It was a 51 Ford that I paid $225 for. And it ran great, and I used it for a couple of years. It was a wonderful car. But I think that there's just something about the history of how they were made, and in a kinder, gentler time. You know, they were mass produced, but mass produced in dozens and hundreds, not thousands. And I was lucky enough to visit Iron Mountain, Michigan, where the factory was, and we collected a bunch of photographs from inside the factory of the workers bringing a log in from the forest and making a door or making a roof, or and watching the assembly process, and it was it just got in my heart, you know, something that I identified with it. It was a much finer wood body than all the expensive cars, the Chryslers and other cars that built Woodies, Chevrolet, who sent their bodies out to be made by some other body company. But this was quality first growth wood in a car that sold new for $900.
Wow.
Amazing.
You know, and the wood was furniture, fine furniture quality wood. So I just kind of identified with the product, and as I got older, my interest continued and then finally, when I got to the point where I had some time to start a collection, I was very fortunate to meet a couple of fine restoration guys who didn't like the part of restoration where you had to go out and find the car, pay for it. They just wanted to be left alone in the back of a shop to do their thing. So we formed a partnership where I would find the car, finance the car, give them a place to work, give them a couple of guys to schlep parts, and just let them do what they loved. But we all shared the love of Ford Motor Company. We would go to their big grand meets every 5 years back. We'd drive these old cars from Los Angeles to Michigan. And so the road trips, the experiences along the road, it was all part of the package.
You know, you mentioned the fact that they're not mass produced. So are there some rare Woodies within this collection that's here this weekend?
Number 35 in your catalog, number 35 is a 42 Mercury station wagon. It's funny. I found the car first, and it's probably too long a story to tell. But in December of 41, when Pearl Harbor was attacked, within the next 60 days, President Roosevelt directed all the car manufacturers to shut down and convert to building tanks and Jeeps and airplanes for the war effort. So the 42 model was only produced for about 2 months. So there was, I think, less than 900 of them made. And it was one of the hardest cars for me to find. We set out to make a collection of the Flathead era from 1932 to 1953. Every Ford Wood modeled car we wanted an example of. And this was probably the hardest one to find. This particular car belonged to Steel in New England, and I had been looking for one for a long time. I saw his name in the Woody Times roster, and so I called him and said that I was looking for a 42. I was a collector. I was very interested in his car. Could you tell me about it? He told me about it. And I said, well, I really want that car. May I come see you? And so my wife and I flew back to New Hampshire, a little tiny town, Captainsville, I think it was the name of the town. And I walked down the driveway, and there would be clumps of bushes along the side of the driveway. And if you look carefully, there was a car inside the bushes. He had collected cars and then just let plants grow up around them. And I was thinking, oh God, I hope the Mercury isn't in one of these clumps of brush. But so I knocked on the door, kind of typical New Englander, 80 years old, gray ponytail, tweed, not tweed, but heavy sweater with leather patches on the elbows, the hiking boots. And
his name was LL Bean, right?
Yeah. And so I said, I introduced myself. I'm here to see your Mercury. And so he said, okay, follow me. So we went out to this barn, and in one of the stalls was just this huge pile of cardboard boxes and toys and things. But I could see at the bottom of the pile, I could see the right-hand front bumper sticking out of this 42 Mercury. It took us about half an hour to remove all the junk that had been piled on top of it over the years. And I'm thinking to myself, geez, I thought he told me that this is the car that he takes his grandkids to camp in. And by the time we got all the stuff off, I looked at the license plates, and the last time it had been plated was 1955.
Wow.
So I finally realized that he had Alzheimer's, and he was telling these stories about this car as if it just happened, but it was 50 years earlier. And the more I looked at the car, the more excited I got about it because it was so original. You know, it had only driven for 13 years. And so I finally said, Richard, this is the car I've been looking for. I really would like to buy your car. And he said, oh, I could never sell this car. This is the car I took my kids to camp in. This car. And he said, no, well, I'm sorry, but he said, give me your name and phone number and I'll give it to my lawyer. And when I die, he'll call you. And that's the last I ever heard from Richard Steele. But about 6 years later, this collector called me, or not this guy, another guy called me that I knew. He said, I have a 42 Mercury I want you to restore. I said, which one? There's so few, I knew every car. He said, I got it from a guy in New England. He had passed away, but I got it from his attorney. I said, you son of a bitch.
Unreal. Unreal.
I wanted that car so badly. So anyway, second best was that he was going to let us restore it. So we at least got to restore the car. And then I don't know, at some point I was surprised to see that this collector had apparently bought it from the guy we restored it for. But that's the kind of things, my job for that 15-year period was to go out and find these cars. And so I went to places around the United States and Canada that I never would have gone for any other reason. Small towns, funny stories, interesting people. A lot of these cars had belonged to wealthy people from New York or Chicago, but they kept their car at their lake house in Maine or New Hampshire. And so the cars would only be driven for a few summer months. And so they never deteriorated. And so that was kind of my hunting grounds, was New England, trying to find the nicest of these cars. The ones in California were all beat to hell. You know, they'd been driven 12 months a year in all the weather, and the wood was always shot. But the gems were back in New England.
And Nick, I think it's worth noting that the consignor bought some of these cars from you, as well as sending quite a few to you for restoration. Is that right?
Yeah, we traded some cars back and forth. He liked. I had a 42 or 48 Mercury convertible that I had restored because when I was young, my mom and dad had gotten divorced, and right after the war, cars were really hard to get. And one day, my dad drove in the driveway, and I was out in backyard playing with my cars and trucks. And he said, "Is your mom here?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, get her." So I went and I said, "Mom, Dad's here and he's driving a Mercury convertible." And so she came out and he said, "Honey," he dangled the keys like this and said, "Honey, if you'll take me back, this is your car." Now, she had been riding me to kindergarten on the back of a bicycle, and I was living with her and my aunt and my granny. Between the three of them, they owned a 40 Chevy business coupe, a real pile. So here was this yellow, brand new 48 Mercury convertible. I'm looking at my mom going, take it. But my mom was really smart. She said, "Well, why don't you leave it here for a couple of days and let me think it over?" So he did. And she drove him home and came back and said, "Okay, we're taking a road trip. We're going to San Francisco and we're going to see your old aunt and we're going to live it up a little bit." So we packed a bag and got in this brand new Mercury convertible and drove from LA to San Francisco and back. Had a great time. I got pictures of me floating in a swimming pool at this rich guy's estate, and my mom and me standing in front of the car. And when we got back, my dad called and came over and said, "Well, what do you think?" And she said, "Nah, it's not worth it," and handed him back the keys. It kind of broke my heart.
Funny.
So anyway, I had an opportunity. I found a 48 Mercury convertible and restored it. And it was a car that this collector liked when he saw it, the way we had done it. And so when we sold the collection, I sold that car to Ron. And then I wound up buying it back from him a few years later. Actually, when I moved up here to San Ynez, I had it up here for a while. So yes, we did do some business back and forth. We were very, very good friends, competitors, but good friends.
Charlie, why is the seller parting ways with this collection?
He's not old and he's in great health. I think, when a man hits a certain age, they start thinking mortality, and
sure.
I think he just wants to kind of lighten the load a little bit. But like I say, he's in great health. He works out. He goes to the gym 3 days a week. He's strong as a bull. He's
like you, Charlie.
Yeah, right. He told me he goes to sleep around midnight every night. And he's up at 6 o'clock every day. I mean, the guy has endless energy. But I think he just wants to kind of lighten the load a little bit.
Well, another aspect of that too, I think, is that, and Nick, you've been through this. There's also sometimes a point where you feel like you've achieved your goal, and you build your collection to a certain point, and then I think there's a genuineness that the care and passion that you have for those cars, that it'd be cool to let others partake in that. Is that a fair assessment, Nick?
Yes, it is. The putting together of the collection is the most fun. Finding the cars, seeing the progress, seeing the finished product. But at the end, it was me that had to go in every Saturday morning and start the cars and be sure the batteries were up and drive them around to keep them fresh. And that wasn't as much fun. The fun was in the chase. And I think this collector and I share something that, whether it's horses or cars, my family, the day I die, they're going to get rid of everything. They don't like horses. They don't care about old cars. And I think this collector is in that same spot. His kids have gone off to college, made a way for themselves. The big family compound is still there for Thanksgivings and holidays, and the kids come back a lot, but they've all gone off and had their own lives. And I don't think he has any kids that are crazy about cars. And his wife is very sweet, but I don't think she cares about the cars either. So at some point you have to cut the cord. You don't want to leave all this stuff to a wife or kids that don't care about them and don't know what to do with them. So I think that's probably why he's doing the right thing.
I think it's important to really point out too that all 20 of these Woodies are being sold with no reserve. So someone's probably going to get a pretty sweet deal here this weekend.
Yeah, I think that when a seller is kind of working through that, let's sell it, that when they're really serious, to sell them no reserve is the best way to do it. And Nick has experienced that. And when you have great cars and you sell them as a group, as we're doing, for this collector now, everybody appreciates that. They know what you did. They know your cars. And, I think the reward is almost always there. I mean, yes, it makes the process shorter because you're not dragging out selling a bunch of cars over 2-3 years. But the buyers, I think, are able to better appreciate the work that, this collector, guys like Nick that have just invested an immense amount of time and effort and money to put them together. And so we're excited. A lot of the buyers, Charlie and I get to talk to a lot of the guys that are interested in these ahead of time. And I mean, there's some wonderful collectors. You're like, I hope this guy gets that car, and I hope he gets that. And we know they're going to go to great homes because they really are great cars.
Yeah. Do you have favorites within the collection? I mean, obviously, Nick, you're a fan of the 42. Any other favorites within this collection?
My favorite is the 34.
Okay.
I just love the look of. So, it is probably the height of the streamlined and deco. Not the height, but at the beginning of the streamlined look. And it's my opinion, and a lot of collectors share the opinion, that no manufacturer built an ugly car in 33 or 34. The styling is just extraordinary. I don't care if it's a Ford, Cadillac, Packard, Chevy, it doesn't matter. I just love the look of 33s and 34. So I'm fond of the 34. Not the Strathglass, not the big one, but the green one. John, which is your favorite?
Well, it's hard to pick a favorite, even if somebody else's cars is, yes, a little bit. But, the Marmon Harrington is such an imposing car that one sticks out as my favorite because it's epic.
It is.
I love it. Color's great. Everything about it is awesome.
Yeah. Kayla, do you have a favorite? Have you seen enough of them yet?
No, I'm not going to be able to name it properly, but what's like the teal colored one?
The Monarch?
The Monarch. That one's definitely my favorite. How many of those are made?
Nick, any idea how many Monarch wagons were built?
No, I don't. It's obviously a Canadian version of the Mercury. And I think when first got that car, I think he told me he knew of 3 when he was looking for one, trying to find one. It wasn't a car that we were chasing because we were just chasing the American versions of the car. But it's basically the same as a Mercury with just different treatment on the grille, some minor differences. But it's a very, very rare car. That one is the rare one, the 42 Mercury, the Marmon Harrington. I don't know if many people know the Marmon Harrington story, but it's worth repeating. It's a company in Indiana, I believe, that they made 4-wheel drives for large trucks, and they had a division that in the 40s decided to start making them available for passenger cars. And so you could go to your Ford dealer and order a brand new 40 Ford with 4-wheel drive conversion. So it would get built in the Ford factory, a complete car, and then it would get shipped to Marmon Harrington Company in Indiana. They would convert it to the 4-wheel drive, then send it back to the dealer for new car delivery. And it just about doubled the price of the car. But they were mostly used by ranches, commercial operations, logging companies, ranches, where they were really used hard out where they had to have 4-wheel drive. So they were very rare to begin with, but then they were even rarer 10 years later because most of them were in the junkyard. So to find one that was restorable is a huge accomplishment, and to own one you have an extremely rare car if you own a Mercury or a Ford with a Marmon Harrington conversion. We won our class at Pebble Beach with a 40 Ford standard station wagon with Marmon Harrington conversion, and the judges were just all over that car. It was spectacular, and as his is the same.
Going back to the Monarch for a minute.
So
I'm just going to go back to the Monarch for a second, Nick. It's really difficult to get any information on Monarchs.
Why?
I don't know. They didn't build very many, and I think they only built them for 5 or 6 or 7 years. But if you Google 1950 Monarch station wagon, you can barely find anything.
Wow.
So I think they made 500 or 600 wagons, and this is one of 3 known to exist. It's
Wow.
very, very rare.
Of course, I like the one that's hard to find and know anything about, right?
Oh, you have good taste.
But it
right.
is selling
Great
no
color.
reserve on Saturday, Kayla,
So I should get 2 of them if I can? Is that what you're trying to say?
Well, you didn't need one Saturday. You can worry about the other one later.
Guys, what am I missing? I feel like we've covered a lot regarding this collection. I'm really excited about it. Again, you can preview it for yourself online at worldwideauctioneers.com. But anything else to add, Nick, before we wrap this up?
Well, just knowing the collector as I do, I think you could buy with confidence. He's a very, very interesting man. He was a self-made man. Started out with nothing. Was a school teacher, and put that whole thing together with what he made from writing textbooks and things like that. He's just really one of the most interesting men I've ever met, and I consider him a good friend. And I think anybody should be lucky to get one of those cars.
Nick, I appreciate you making the time to be here with us this afternoon. Charlie, John, I know we've got more to talk about, so don't get too far away from me here. Don't forget, for you, all of the Woodies in this collection, there's 20 of them, sold with no reserve. So preview them right now online at worldwideauctioneers.com. Thanks for watching Worldwide TV. Once again, I am Kayla Blakesley. I am your host today. By day, I host a news talk radio program in Northeast Indiana. But today, I am your host, part of the Scottsdale auction in Auburn, Indiana. And right now, I have the pleasure of hanging out with my buddies, John and Matt. And I wanted you both to sit down and take a break here so we can really dive into the J. Cruz Education Center and just talk a little bit more about it. For starters, just how did it come to fruition?
Yeah. Well, Rod and I, my business partner here at Worldwide, have been pretty passionate about education for many years. I grew up in an educationally driven home and have been able to have access to watch what happens not just here in Indiana, but around the country. And we believe that there are a lot of things that we can do to help our students, our parents, our teachers, other organizations be better at educating our kids. And so we are really focused on what we've done, which is putting together a program and an education center that is going to be transformative for education. And we believe that early on, the experiences that you have lead you to a path that will allow you to have a fulfilling career. And there's some very disappointing statistics that are out there. As an example, 80% of folks who graduate from college will never have a job in their degree field.
Wow.
And as little as 15% of people say that they are experiencing a fulfilling career. And so what we're doing right here in this facility is we are building out the most epic interactive experience center anywhere in the world. And we're certainly blessed to be able to do this right here in Northeast Indiana. And that's where students, adults, and certainly veterans who are transitioning out of service we're specifically, serving them and K through 12 students, where they can come here and really free range explore all 16 career paths and the dozens of job categories that are out there. And then along with that, we have our Career Coaching Academy, where you're able to go through a battery of assessments, meet with our career coaches, and then we actually connect you with places that are hiring. So businesses, if it's students, other educational opportunities, or other great nonprofit programs that are out there that are specific to what we now have assisted you in discovering. And we're just there to come alongside that individual all the way through and do everything we can to help them experience a fulfilling career. And since we're, really passionate about this, we do have a lot of other things that we're doing. And as a business person who's passionate about education and also is pretty involved in the political end of things, we felt that it would be imperative to have a strong educator at the helm of this. And so after maybe a little bit of convincing or arm twisting,
some negotiating,
we were able and are so fortunate to have a quality, beyond quality individual in Matt to be our executive director. So we wanted to pick what we got, because I don't think we could have had a better person anywhere from any place else.
Well, Matt, you spent over a decade in the public education system. I know you were a principal at a local school around here. So what is your role then as the executive director?
Yeah, so my passion came out of, I was a teacher followed by an administrator. And I think the most disheartening aspect of being in that area, talking with high schoolers every day, was that they didn't have a purpose. They didn't have a drive. I'd ask juniors and seniors, what are you doing after you graduate from high school? Oh, I don't know, Mr. Toth. I don't know. I don't know what I want to do. What do you mean after 12, 13 years in our system? How have we not given you a passion, a drive? How have you not discovered what you want to do following high school? I knew this was an issue, but given the restrictions of public schools, all of our schools, public, private, no matter what, kids don't get out of the building. They don't have these life experiences that they need to see what else is out there. What are they excited about? What are they talented in? What skills do they have? And how do we mesh that with careers that actually exist? And so that became my driving passion to jump on board with John, become the executive director, and begin creating this vision of something that's never been done to radically transform education in this country and maybe even the world.
So is it safe to say that the meat and bones of this, when it comes to the goal, you're really just trying to help kids, teens, adults, veterans that you mentioned, just discover their true passion?
Yeah, and mesh their talents and their passions with a career, with how they're hardwired, with how God hardwired them to be. That is the true focus.
Amen to that. So when you say career paths, I believe, John, you mentioned there's 16 of them. Could you be a little bit more specific? What kind of career paths are we talking about here?
So we've been able to, over the last decade, travel the country, do a lot of research, and learn what other states are classifying different career paths. And so we have come up with our own set, but we believe that pretty much every job falls in one of these 16 categories. So as an example, here in Northeast Indiana, we have a lot of healthcare, a lot of hospitals, etc. So health services is a pathway. You may want to be a nurse, you might want to be an x-ray technician, but all of those things still fall under that umbrella parent pathway of health services. Manufacturing, business, marketing, human services, agriculture, food, natural resources, information technology. We can go through the rest of them, but it is first identifying, kind of that passion. What is it about you, as Matt says, that you're hardwired, that's going to drive you to be excited about something on an ongoing basis, but then also taking your talents. As we go through the assessments, it's getting to know who you are, but also what you're actually good at, and say, hey, you know what? Maybe you're not great at biology, but you really felt like you wanted to be a nurse. Well, if you really dissect a particular assessment, I say, hey, you know what? What we've discovered is you really care about helping people, you're really good at math, you have some accounting aptitudes, maybe you consider being an accountant within a healthcare system. And so you would be fulfilled in knowing, hey, I'm part of helping people. You know, the nurse is doing this, the doctor's doing that, but somebody's got to do, you know, the back end of that and all the financial aspects of it. So that's one example. And for our students, as they're, you know, thinking about college exploration, you know, let's make sure that we've identified, not after you graduate from college, but before you ever go.
That would be nice.
Hey, this is something you're good at. This is something you like. So you're really investing. You're making a good investment in that college endeavor. And I tell you what, when you sit around a group or family, and you have a young person that is sharing, I don't know what I want to do. I have no idea. I mean, there's nothing more gut wrenching, because that does not have any bounds. It has nothing to do with income, race, all those things, because you have people of all spectrums that have that challenge. Conversely, when we all are sitting around as a group or family, and we know that, you know, little Johnny is so excited, or Jane is just amped, none of us really care at that point if it's the most lucrative paying job, but we know that they're happy, they're fulfilled, and it's one of the best feelings you can have. And unfortunately, that's a feeling a lot of people don't have. They've got the prior one, and we want to try to correct that. And so many people want to support, you know, students and veterans. And what better way than to know, hey, this person wants this. And I know a lot of business owners like, hey, here's a 16-year-old student, and we've gone through it. They've been coached, they've been assessed, they've had the experiences here at our experience center. We know this person wants to work in your pathway.
They will thrive there.
Oh,
yes.
Those people oftentimes will do more than you could possibly imagine to help that individual be successful in that. And that's what we want to do.
Well, speaking of that support, then how does the auction tie in to the J. Cruz Education Center?
Sure. Well, you know, Rod and I like to give back. A lot of the things we do are maybe under the radar or quiet. This one is not
so much.
It's a little bit more visible. And so we found that the collector car community, which is a pretty affluent community, and it's also a very giving community. We want our company, Worldwide Auctioneers, to actively and on an ongoing basis be able to participate in things that we believe are worthwhile. And so having it here in the building and all that kind of stuff, it's great. So we have a lot of our clients, in addition to Rod and I ourselves and some of our other board, that we will actually donate automobiles to the education center. There's a lot of ways to do that.
Do tell, please.
Sure. Well, you know, so some folks are like, hey, we're just going to donate it and, you know, sell it and use the money for, you know, the coaching academy or experience center. And as the case with the A-Team van we're selling,
right.
That's particularly earmarked to support the coaching academy. So that'll create an incredible amount of scholarships for folks to be able to get that done. And so that can take place. Also, we have a unique program where a collector can donate a car and transfer ownership, but they can still keep possession of it and use it.
Really?
And then we would actually take possession of it and potentially sell it later down the road. And that's a program that a lot of our supporters really like, because, you know, some of us
get to have your cake and eat it too, kind of.
Right. You're like,
well, feel good about it.
I'd love to help.
Yeah.
You know, can I help a little later? And well, yes, you can. And that really gives some flexibility and plan to giving, and depending on what, you know, somebody's tax situation might be in any given year. And so we've been very blessed to have some great folks that are doing that. And you know,
what you're trying to say, John, is donate, right? Is that what we're trying to tell everybody today?
Thank you for saying it.
I'll say it for you. You know, I always say, you know, try and use whatever powers that you have for good. It's a motto that I try to live by myself. And it sounds like both of you, I'm doing some really incredible, inspiring things. You know, for folks watching Worldwide TV right now, if they want to learn more or get involved, I'm assuming there's a website. I mean, how can we learn more?
Yeah. You can go to the J. Cruz Education website. It's jcruzeducation.org. All of the information about the Experience Center is there. The Coaching Academy tab is there. They can donate if they want to donate there monetarily. They can get involved volunteering. If there's a business aspect to it and they want to partner with us, that's available too. But one other thing I want to also note about the Coaching Academy, it's one of the most forward-thinking coaching academies that exists in the nation right now.
Oh, wow.
Most coaching academies will not coach individuals under the age of 18. We will coach 13 years on up. And so what we're doing there is already getting students, veterans, individuals who maybe aren't quite sure of any winning streak in their life. What are they good at? What are their strong suits? Giving them winning streaks at the age of 13, 14, and 15 has incredible potential to drive their thoughts moving up into their teenage high school years and preparing them for what they're thinking about post high school. So that combined with how we do our coaching, 3 assessments, utilizing those. One of our assessments gathers your personality. The other one gathers your career interests.
Jeez.
And we have a report that will mesh the two together. And on your interest battery, when you respond to those questions on there, it actually relates them to somebody who's been in the career for a minimum of 5 years and reports that they are fulfilled and satisfied in their job. And so when you mesh that with a personality and someone's skills, and through the conversation bringing the values, it's an incredible recipe for us to be able to sit down with a teenager, a veteran, an individual, and say, here's how you're hardwired. Here are the top 25 jobs you might want to explore. Here's some classes you can take at your local university, your vocational school, to get you prepared and figuring out what you want to do.
This sounds, I mean, just absolutely incredible. How much manpower and time did it take to developing the education center?
We have a special R&D department that's cloning Matt right now.
That would be nice. Can you get me one while you're at it?
Yeah. So we took a lot of time exploring around the nation what career coaching centers are open, what ages are they coaching, how much does it cost to coach an individual, how much time start to finish. And so looking at all of these things around the country, around the world, we decided on 3 core assessments that we decided to use to help pinpoint and triangulate data on individuals. And then from there, we decided, you know what, we need a more unique way to coach. We're not just going to coach 18 on up like everybody else. We need to start younger because a lot of those decisions of young people they're forcing young people to make those decisions earlier and earlier. Why waste a semester going in a welding class when you are not hardwired to do that? And maybe in our experience center, 20 minutes of welding here will say, no way, I'm never going to do that. I'm done.
Okay, answer me honestly here, because you've been in the public education arena for quite some time. When John came to you and said, hey, I've got this idea, I want to do this, did you think he was crazy? Did you think it was possible?
I would say I definitely thought it was possible. I don't know if I thought he was crazy. We had a love-hate relationship.
Pretend he's not sitting right there.
It was a love-hate relationship at first, but as I started learning about his vision and his passion for wanting to disrupt the educational space, I understood that and felt that because I saw it every single day walking through the halls of the high school.
Well, again, I'm so excited for you guys. Way to use your powers for good. One more time, that website for folks to learn more.
Yeah, jcruzeducation.org.
jcruzeducation.org. Thanks for watching us on Worldwide TV. Don't forget, you can preview all the cars, get registered, find out the schedule of events right now on worldwidetv.com. Stay with us.
Hey everybody, it's John Cruz here. We're on Worldwide TV, and one of the best parts about being in interesting car world is we get to have some wonderful relationships with some great people and have a lot of fun while we're playing with cars. So talking with Rory Carroll, Editor-in-Chief at Jalopnik. Rory, we've known each other for a long time, and it's been exciting to watch you become a very influential person in car world, and appreciate you taking time to chat. It's wonderful.
Yeah, thanks, John. It's good to see you, man. A lot of people don't know, but John gave me one of my first paid writing gigs, doing auction catalog copy for Worldwide. So I've always had a soft spot for your company and obviously you guys, and I'm thrilled to be here.
Cool, cool. Well, it's fun. I think I always tell people the main reason I love cool cars and vintage cars is the experiences that they bring, and particularly with the people. And I have a lot of fun with my kids, and our kids are about the same age, and Rod's little kids are about the same age, and it's really fun to be able to have a family experience. And it really doesn't matter what the car is. Matter of fact, we have some of the most fun and some of our least expensive cars. So it's not a money thing as much as just being able to get together and have small community, and especially in today's world, I know throughout our current pandemic phases, our family has been able to create some special times in our cars, just by ourselves, out driving around and playing around, which is wonderful. And I hope everybody out there has been able to still create some memorable experiences with their cool cars throughout this time.
Yeah, that's been my whole thing. And Johnny, like you said, you know me a long time, and I think the cool thing about this world is there's the super high end stuff, but there's kind of a place for everybody in it. And I think we always talk about it at Jalopnik, meeting people kind of where they are. So it's like they're new to this. If they got $2,500 to spend, if they've got $25,000 or $250,000 to spend on a car, there's probably a fun old car, fun hobby car for them to play with, and like you said, make some fun memories. And that's definitely been my experience. I mean, my my history of having some nice cars and some not so nice cars, and I think, like you said, the lesser cars, or like the less collectible cars, have been just as much fun for me to own. Which actually, probably a good question for you, I think, segue if I can, but what do you see right now at that low level, accessible level of fun stuff? What are some good places to get in? I remember when I was first getting into this, it was like BMW 2002s and Alpha GTVs were cheap, but certainly is not the case anymore. What do you see on the horizon as kind of fun, accessible stuff?
Yeah, it is always, as I've grown up and over the years been part of this hobby, it is, of course, from an investment standpoint, it was, what's the next, great piece? And it's fulfilling for me. When I was a kid, I had a Viper poster in my room, which was a big deal because my parents were not big into a bunch of posters and stuff. And to see them kind of come into their own as early 90s, late 90s cars. So as we look at the future, I think that I guess for me it's kind of not so much what is going to be worth a bunch of money, as much as what are we going to have fun with. And you look at a lot of the usable pieces, I think, and I'm, at least here in the Midwest, I see a lot of younger people gravitating to still some of the SUV early ones, your Jeep Grand Cherokees and some of that stuff. And of course your imports, tuner land. And it's like, well, are any of these ever going to be worth anything? I guess it doesn't matter, but they can have some fun. And I know you got some of these smaller, unique cars that I don't know if kids, when I say kids, we're saying 18 to 25, are viewing them in the same way that I do. But it's really hard for me to answer that specifically as I think about, what cars in the 2000s that are kind of more in that affordable range, if you will. I mean, we're not talking about Ford GTs and supercars. What are they? And I really don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I really like some of the Honda stuff from that era, like the Preludes from the early 2000s, and like even the weird little Jelly Bean Civic SIs is coming around. Like Ford Focus SVT was a really cool thing.
That I would put that at the top of my list.
Yeah. I mean, they're still great cars to drive, and they're out there. They're hard to find, and the challenge with everything is like when a performance car starts becoming a little bit collectible, like finding one that hasn't been just ruined by 4 generations of teenagers.
Right.
But those are, and like I said, those cars loomed large for me when I was that age, when I was like 16, 17, like starting to really think about like what that first car would be for me. And obviously they were totally out of reach, but like that stuff, when you see one, you see a nice one, it definitely catches your eye, and they're still like reasonably approachable. And like you said, who knows if that's ever going to be a blue chip car, but it's something you could buy right now and have a ton of fun with.
One car that I remember, so the first car I ever bought was a 65 Dodge Dart. And then the second car, which I actually used the most, was a 1987 Ford Taurus. And it had some rust, and it was not a great car by any stretch. I actually bought it from my brother over a 6-month period for $1,250. And so I had that, but there were some cool kids out there that had some SHOs. And even today, I'm like, if I could find a super good SHO, I would love to have that, and kind of put myself, I don't want the rusted out regular one, but it'd be super cool to get one of those.
Yeah, you want the one you wanted, not the one you had.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah, those are super cool. And I think too, like in hindsight, it's like a bunch of those cars when we were probably, in our 20s and 30s or early 20s, I guess, were just used cars. And now it's coming back around, and like you can appreciate how revolutionary the Taurus was. I mean, if you remember, like when that car came to market, like nothing looked like that. There were no rounded, like hyper aerodynamic. It was all like kind of a hangover from the 70s. Like you had, some 70s styling mixed with some 80s styling. And that thing, I remember the first one I saw, which again, dating myself a little bit, but I remember the first time I saw a new Taurus, and it was like, whoa, that's the future. Like that's something completely different than anything else that's in the market. And I think like now when you see that stuff and it's clean, it's really like, really striking to me.
Oh, yeah, it's always great to see somebody. I mean, when you're younger, you just hop in and you're not thinking about anything but getting where you're going and kind of being cool while you do it. And I wasn't thinking about preserving my car I was driving. I was just thinking about using it. And so when I see somebody that had the forethought that, hey, I know this is special, and be like, man, but I guess that person was pretty smart and I was pretty stupid. And it's neat to see those cars preserved.
Yeah. I was just talking to our buddy Jonathan Klinger at Haggerty this weekend, and he is in the process of moving. He had a really high option, like 80s Mercury Cougar. So, and same thing. He used it and drove it as a kid, and it got rusty and beat up, but it has everything on it. And so he's in the process of arranging to have the guts, all of the factory security and stereo and adjustable seats and all that stuff moved over into a clean shell of another Ford or a Mercury Cougar, which, to our earlier point, certainly a labor of love, as they say. That's not an investment that he's making, but he'll have the car that he loved as a kid, and that's part of this. I think like getting those experiences back. I know I've been looking pretty frequently for like a Mark II Volkswagen GTI. And I know like I'm not a huge nostalgia person, but like that was the first fast car, or like fast, not at all fast by today's standards, but like performance car that I ever had. And like I can remember what it felt like to sit in that seat and like to drive that car. And I want to have that experience again, which is, you know, maybe that's me getting softer and more nostalgic as I near middle age, but it definitely, like, you can start to see the appeal.
That's awesome. Well, you know, it's always fun to think about the experiences, and as some of us get to middle age, I'm pretty sure I'm there. I'm going to go with probably am. But, you know, to try to, you know, adjust your resources and, you know, convince your significant other that this is a great idea and all that kind of stuff is fun. Because, you know, there's still, aside from how much or how little you can buy something for, you still have to have a place to put it, whether it's the driveway or the garage or, you know, that kind of stuff. And, you know, I park outside. Right? Like this morning, I had to get the car cranked up and defrosted and all that kind of jazz. And we live on a farm, but we also have, you know, what I think are cooler cars inside our barns and stuff. And we're parking outside, which seems silly when you think about it. But then you're like, well, there's no way. I mean, I can't sit outside. We can just park outside. It's no big deal.
I have all of my, historically I've had garage space, and I currently have 2 collector cars in the garage, and my 2 daily driver cars are sitting outside frozen.
Oh, love it.
Probably no matter how many garage spaces I have, that will probably always be the case.
Well, and you know, my wife Abby, and those that also know her, she's a wonderful, sweet human, and never complains about it. The other day we were just, you know, chit-chatting about, you know, maybe some things we could do in the future, and you know, she's like, you know, do you think that maybe we someday could have like a garage where we park our daily drivers inside? And it wasn't, you know, it wasn't a vindictive or angry or like, you know, that would be really nice, you know, if we didn't have to scrape snow off the windshield someday.
Yeah, which if she's mentioned it, you probably better get on that. Start making your plan.
Yes. Yep. I'm trying. Well, so I'm thinking about, oh, well, we could build a garage, but immediately I forget about the conversation with her, and I'm thinking, man, what I could put this in. Man, we probably need to make it a little bigger because we could squeeze another car.
Maybe a little shop space, get a machine shop back there. Yeah, I've had that thought too. What do you think? So a lot of the activity that we've been seeing as far as new stuff in collector car world or like an auction world has been this online thing. What's your read on that? What have you seen like impact on the market? And then like, you know, what you guys, I think are probably like one of the stalwart in-person experiences, right? Like you take the auctioneering part very seriously. You take the experience very seriously. What I guess is like the difference, like if you're a buyer or a seller, like what do you think like the in-person thing brings that's different or better?
Yeah. Well, that's a great question, and you know, I've had some experience with both. You know, growing up in the auction world, and that's all auctions, right? You know, the first, you know, paycheck I got, you know, I got paid 50 cents to run clerk tickets from the auction block to the office at a farm auction when I was 4 years old. But I also got to participate in the mid-90s in the first live online auction of cars anywhere in the world. And that was right here in Auburn, Indiana. My business partner Rod and I were both there. Worked with a fella a lot of people know, Jeff Bezos. I was actually part of that. And so we've had a front row seat and actually a behind the podium seat, if you will, on the advent of online auctions. And so they've certainly come a long way and now are reaching, prevalence. And I think that, COVID has certainly encouraged and forced a lot of the older generations to participate online. But, I tell you, even as we do some things with virtual reality and online bidding, etc., nothing will ever replace the experience of a live auction. Our internet or live bidding and timed auctions and internet-only auctions, online only as most of us refer to them in the collector car space, are they here to stay? Are they going to continue to become more and more prevalent? Absolutely. But it's still not, it's not going to change it. I mean, you just can't, right? I mean, you can listen, we all like listening to our favorite, artist on the radio, but we've had some, cool Zoom or live stream, many private concerts a lot of artists are doing from their living rooms or whatever. But I mean, it's really no different. The emotion, the connectivity, the human element, you just can't replace it. And I think for cars, our biggest challenge with online auctions in the virtual world is not even the human connectivity. That's a great bonus thing I think we're all going to want and like, probably even more in the future. As millennials and Gen Zers, they're pretty experience driven as opposed to maybe materialistic as some older generations are. And so those live experiences, I think, are going to become, they're coming back. They're not going away. But the biggest challenge is when you buy a car, knowing what you're buying, inspecting it, and there's some good processes that are out there. Certainly there's a lot of improvements, as we are developing our own online experience. We're trying to address some of those, but it's pretty hard to replace a buyer and what they want when they see a car, or if you're hiring a third party to inspect a car. I mean, I can zoom in and take photos and live, do FaceTimes. It's just not quite the same as being in person to inspect a car. So that's the biggest challenge, I think, with online. But even you watch anything on TV or social media compared to being live in the room, and auctions are entertainment. I think that a lot of our collector car auctions, particularly in the last 10, 15 years, have gotten a little stuffy. It's a serious business. It's an investment business. I get that. But if you can't have a good time, if you're not having any fun, seriously, get a life, right? You can go invest in the stock market and not have fun, right? So,
yeah, that's always been the thing about this. Is it's like, yes, there's certainly money to be made, but anybody I know who's made money has said just buy what you like and try to have fun, and that seems to be the only workable investment strategy in the old car world, is just buy what you think is cool personally and have fun with it, and then let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah.
So with that said, if I were new to the collector car world and I wanted to buy at auction for the first, give me some advice. Give me your, not the in-depth, but what would you say are some things to think about and some things to prepare for? I mean, I've been registered to bid at a couple of auctions in the past, but I've never bought anything. And it seems a little bit intimidating to me, even as much time as I've spent in auctions. So give me the quick version of John Sage advice for the first time auction buyer.
Yeah, well, I own and operate the #1 auction school in the world, and I'm on an auction commission. So I get to see all the auction stuff and have a pretty good insight. And I think that the the biggest negative perception of an auction is that it's so fast moving and I'm not sure what's going on, I'm going to get screwed. And so my word of advice to a new collector, someone that might be thinking about buying something, doesn't matter if it's online auction, live auction, is do a little homework and make sure you know what you want. As I've grown up and even now, I see a lot of wealthier folks show up, hey, let's buy some cool stuff. And they show up and it's probably 75%. They just start buying whatever they think is cool right then without thinking about it. It's like, you know what? I don't know why I bought that Corvette. I really don't even like Corvettes. I like Mustangs. And so the intentionality of it and learning, just hop online and, like, okay, do I really like this? Or sit in a car. A lot of people don't think about some of the older cars were built obviously differently, but what you're used to today in a modern car, and then you sit in an old one. I've had people buy older cars. They get them home, they sit in them and they're like, how do you start this? And this isn't comfortable. Why did I ever buy this? So one of the great things too about live auctions or maybe not so much museums, but clubs, that if you call some of these people, be like, hey, can I come sit in your BMW 2002? Can I just sit in it and see if I like it? They don't even have to let you drive it, but just do some homework so that when you do go to participate, your comfort level and what you're buying is already there, and then talk to the auctioneer. We're I guess the last of the Mohicans, as Rod and John, where we're owners and we're the auctioneers. But what I found is if you have a relationship with the auctioneer, that removes a lot of things, right? Some of us, we get intimidated because we don't know somebody, but that's so do a little homework and get to know the people that are actually selling you the car, and you'll get a pretty good gut feeling immediately, like, I don't know if I'm going to get the real scoop or I can be comfortable with this.
Yeah, I remember one of my earliest collector car experiences. I must have been 22 or 23, and I was trying to buy, again, another car that was cheap at the time and come on a little bit in value. But I remember I really wanted a Lotus Europa for some reason. And I was calling all over the country and looking at forum postings and trying to find one. I found one that I really liked, and it was in my price range, and it was in Arizona somewhere. And I called the owner, and I was talking to him, and I was running. I'd done my due diligence with building out a little checklist, buyer's guide. How's this, how's that. And when was this service done? And he's like, let me ask you a question. He's like, how tall are you? And I was like, I'm between 6'2" and 6'3". And he was like, what size shoe do you wear? And I was like, about a 13. And he was like, yeah. He's like, I can't sell you this car. He's like, you might be able to fit in it, but he's like, why don't you go find one to sit in? And if you fit, we can talk. And I did, and no way. I can get in it, but it wouldn't be a car that I would drive, because it's steering wheel is literally in my knees and my feet don't fit in the pedal box with my shoes on. But that was, I think, to your point, are there some dishonest people in the collector car world? Definitely. But I think by and large, people know it's a small world, and they know their reputation sticks with them, and they want to do the right thing like that. That guy could have very easily taken my money over the phone and said, hey, you're on your own, buddy, when I got the car delivered. But he was looking out. And I think that's probably been my experience 9 times out of 10 in the business, is people looking out for each other and, wanting their car to go to a good home with somebody who loves it. And that's, to your point earlier, that's what's cool about this business, is it's a lot of people who love the same thing, and generally who want to meet other people and have good, positive relationships with other people who like what they like.
Yep, for sure.
What about, and this is like as someone who totally fell backwards into this business, what if like we have readers all the time who are like, you know, I wish we could, I wish you could do, I wish I could do what you do, or wish I could be around cars for a living. And I think, like, you know, when I was growing up, I didn't really know that there were jobs that would allow you to be like a professional car enthusiast, you know?
Sure.
What do you tell people who are like looking to get into the business?
Well, you know, I think that, you know, we have a career coaching academy that we started here a while ago. And so we do career path coaching. And I think a big thing that people need to realize, I'll give you an example. We have a young person that says, you know, hey man, I want to be a nurse. And we find out through some assessments that not really good at biology, and you know, that may not be a great thing. But guess what? We also discovered that you're, you know, really good at math and have some accounting aptitudes. So we've also discovered you really care about people and taking care of people. So you might consider being an accountant in a hospital system. And so that illustration applies to cars, where I think people are car fans. You immediately go to being a car salesman. Yeah. But if you think about maybe last time you went to a dealership and had service work done, or bought a used car or a new car, you look at the whole team and you realize there's a marketing department, there's the finance department, there's the service department. You know, there's actually a lot of different jobs in the automotive world and in the collector car world. Right here, this weekend, we will actually pay people in about 14 out of 16 overall career paths, right? I mean, we've got hospitality people in the facility that are doing that. We've got food and beverage people we're hiring. And we've got, you know, the chef that's doing the food here for our event this weekend loves cars. And so he does a lot of things here. So he gets to do what he's good at, food, around cool cars. And so I think if you just kind of broaden your perspective, identify not just what you're passionate about, but also what you're good at. And there is a job, there's a lot of jobs, right? I mean, we have folks who do research and write stories. We got the marketing people. We have title work folks. We've got facilities people. But a lot of them, our CFO, he's an incredibly talented, high-level guy that probably, he doesn't need to be working here. But he's like, I think it would be super cool to work around cars. I want to work for you. I don't care what I could make somewhere else. So there's a lot more opportunities than folks maybe think.
Yeah. Yeah, that's certainly been my experience. I mean, it was, you know, I spent, as you know, a decent amount of my early life in a different business, let's say, and made the transition to cars late. And I was like, when I finally did, I was like, I wish I would have known about that 10 years ago. I wish I would have known this was a job, you know. But I think that's a good point, is there are tons of jobs in this business. And then I did have one more question, just my personal interest. And that's kind of like state of the market. What do you see as the like 12-month outlook? I know you're like putting on an event right now, so you're probably thinking like the 12-minute outlook, but what is your like general sense of where things are headed?
Well, I think, you know, I can't control, you know, the world health narrative myself, but as I think logically, and a lot of folks have been, you know, shut in, locked down, self-limiting, and have not been able to have, you know, normal life experiences. And so from a car standpoint, I believe the last 10 years, the market's been driven by usability. Even as, you know, I like pre-war American cars. So the ones that are usable, you know, like 37 Packards that have, better suspension and, better brakes and all that sort of stuff. Like, more people can use those and maybe some early cars or boxy, uncomfortable sedans. So I think that as we come out of the phase we're in with the health stuff going on, that people are going to really be invigorated by the experiences and by the usability of the cars. So I'm pretty bullish on the collector car market. As I see a lot of younger people coming in. I mean, we're younger, and anybody that thinks, there's not like, well, who's going to buy all these cars? Well, they're there. We just have to earn a little bit more money to get there. But I think that's a big thing. So if you're thinking about a driving tour or a rally, and you look at some of the cutoff years, and I think there's going to be more driving tours. There's going to be more club events. And that's going to become, I think, more of a highlight on the calendar for more people than they were in the past as we reconnect and use the cars.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like you, I go to, more than a dozen events a year, and it's like, at some points it gets to be like a grind where it's like, oh man, I'm back on an airplane. But I'll tell you what, you take them away for a year, and it's like you don't realize how much you miss.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I think that the last little bit on that, when it comes to values, we have a Sunbeam Tiger, and we have so much fun on that car. It's unbelievable. I really don't care what it's worth.
Yeah.
You can tell me it's worth $2,000, or you can tell me it's worth $200,000, and great. I don't really want to sell it right now, but I know how fun and usable that car is. And I got a good one. It's got all the history and docs and window sticker and blah, blah, blah. Original engine with the original sticker right on the valve cover. Like, it's the real deal.
Yeah.
And I know if and when I ever would want to sell that car, I can. And there's a lot of buyers because it's usable. The mechanicals are been gone through, like, it's ready to go. But usability, I think, will continue to drive the market. And I think as we reconnect, the outlook is great, and it's very solid.
That's good. That's good to hear. Well, I got to hop off, but good to see you, man. Good to hear your voice. I can't wait to see you in person and say hi to the rest of the team and the family, and we'll hopefully see you this summer.
Awesome. I'll look forward to it. Appreciate your time, and yeah, we'll absolutely look forward to seeing you soon.
Of course. See you, buddy.
See ya. Well, thanks, Rory. Appreciate the time, and we'll look forward to seeing everybody again tomorrow as we have our live auction right here on Worldwide TV. We'll see you then.
Here we go, the final push on Worldwide TV, getting ready for the big day tomorrow, the Scottsdale auction in Auburn, Indiana. I am Kayla Blakesley, and what I wanted to do is invite back some of my big guys here so we can kind of have a nice little wrap up here as we make this final push into tomorrow. I've got Travis, I've got Rod, I've got John. Guys, before we kind of dive into some of your favorite cars here and what folks can expect tomorrow, I want to start with you, John/Rod, and just kind of talk about the pivot of why the Scottsdale auction is in Auburn, Indiana.
Yeah, what we were all set, like everybody was, planning on to be in Scottsdale in January, like most of the market is. And it was probably a couple weeks before Thanksgiving, I think, and we had good communications with Department of Health in Arizona and the governor's office, and related to our COVID protocols, which were approved, and they said were excellent. And they just started to mention that, hey, listen, there's been a spike nationally. We've seen it here. We do expect another spike after Thanksgiving. It's obviously one of the biggest holidays.
Sure, from all the get-togethers,
in the country,
people visiting,
most traveled. And they said even though less people are going to travel, families are still going to get together regardless. Which, looking back now, we see that, and it did spike a couple of weeks later. And then the conversation just morphed a little bit into, well, guess what? 2 weeks after that is Christmas. People are going to gather, less than normal, but they're certainly going to gather. Spiked again, and they said, and then of course after that is going to be New Year's. we're going to be days or just a couple of weeks before your event date. And while you've got the green light right now, we can't promise you that we're not going to come out and say, oh, by the way, we're locking this thing up and you can have 50 people there. So John and I huddled, we talked for a while, we consulted a few other people. And at the end of the day, we thought, we need to do this. We've got, you know, from a resource standpoint, certainly regarding our customers, we need to be able to carry out what we set out to do for our customers, and that's sell their cars. Mm-hmm. So the idea was that, hey, listen, we need something that's a definite. What's a definite? This place, 200,000 square feet, under roof, heated, cooled, perfect facility. Anybody can come. Anybody can look at the cars. So we started to talk about what's that look like, logistics of it, and then we started to talk to all the consigners. And we said, listen, what we're worried about is that you ship your car out, you know, 75% of the stuff we have is here at no reserve. Mentally, all those people have already sold their cars. Right. Whether they're going to put their money in a business or buy another car or a house or whatever, doesn't matter. They've mentally made that adjustment. And then for them to ship their car all the way out there, and then for us to have to tell them, oh, hey, listen, sorry, bad news. You got to ship your car back and put it in that spot that you probably already filled up with something else.
And that pool you put in, you might need to get that down payment back.
Right. And it's just not fair to customers to do that. That was our main thing. And then the other thing was, well, when you have 50 people at an auction, that's not fair to customers either as your sellers. And you can't show the cars. It's not fair to either side. You can't do any part of that equation the right way. So we immediately made the decision right at about Thanksgiving, I think, that we were definitely going to make the pivot. We phoned a lot of the consigners and said, here's what we're thinking. What are your thoughts?
What were their thoughts?
Overwhelmingly very positive. I think we lost 4 cars out of all, you know, and those were all California. 1 Arizona car and 3 that were in California. And they were just like, look, I'm not going to ship my car if I can't travel there. I'm not going to go. And it was more of a, hey, these are my worries. Best of luck to y'all. We're doing it. But overwhelmingly, everybody else was like, okay, wait, so I can ship my cars out there now? Yeah, right now. You can ship them out early, couple months early. We're going to have people fly in and look at them. They can be comfortable if they don't want to be in a crowd at the auction. So again, a byproduct that turned out to be very COVID friendly too is that now people can come in, inspect all the cars, do all the research that they want to do. And if they don't want to be in what I would call a relatively crowded area, that they don't have to be. They can be completely comfortable. They can bid with confidence. And that's what's best for our sellers and for our buyers. So we're forced into doing it. At the end of the day, we're really happy we did.
So when folks arrive tomorrow, I mean, are you expecting a ton of people here, crowds here, or what's that going to look like tomorrow?
Well, we're not really expecting a big crowd. We do have it set up, as Rod mentioned, we have a huge facility, and so it's very simple to go through COVID protocols and so forth. And I think what people probably know this, but maybe, you know, it's not necessarily their job to think about it, but it takes a lot of people to put on a collector car auction. And especially when you're like, well, hey, and oh, by the way, we got to add another layer of COVID protocols. So for us, where, you know, most of our team is based here in Northeast Indiana, that is a lot simpler to do because those folks can participate here for, you know, a 3-day preview and auction window. You add travel and all that kind of stuff, or, you know, try to get local people out of town is pretty tough. So we're not expecting huge crowds, but we are inviting folks that are serious about buying a car to be here. It is a live auction, but we also have worldwide TV. So it'll be an informative and entertaining, you know, VIP virtual experience that, you know, we want to bring to all the folks that want to participate in Scottsdale Car Week, right? Because I've been going to Scottsdale for decades. I mean, lots of us car guys have. So there's a little bit of like I should be there.
You should be there,
and,
yeah.
You know,
Should be doing car stuff right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we are still doing car stuff, and we want everybody to participate. We've had a lot of people come in and preview cars early, so they can be here by
Great.
themselves or maybe with, an inspector or mechanic. But a lot of them are going to bid by phone and online, and that's great. We have all of the options available. And
I want to get into more of those options in a moment, but I want to go back to something that you said that I think is important to point out. We've got a lot of cars here this weekend, 75% of them being sold at no reserve.
Yes.
Can you talk about that a little bit further in terms of how people might get some really good deals here this weekend?
Yeah, well, so no reserve, I love the concept of no reserve because you will get true market value for your car every time, and often more. Because what I tell consigners is that, listen, you're gonna sell your car. If your expectations aren't unreasonable, it's absolutely the best way to do it. And the reason why is this. Let's say there's an E-Type Jaguar. Popular cars, people like to find those, 57 Chevys. If you have that car and you're going to sell it, what do you want? You want the most people bidding on it that you can get. How do you accomplish that? Well, you accomplish it by no reserve. Because Travis, you're a car guy. If you're looking for a car and you see 5 or 6 cars and one of them is no reserve at an auction, where are you going?
No reserve.
Why?
Psychology.
Because you might get it, right?
Absolutely.
Good. So you and 15 other guys show up here with the same mentality, and what happens? You put people in a competitive marketplace, they will bid, they will definitely pay market value, and chances are they'll pay more.
But there's almost always a deal or two.
That's right. I'm all about a good deal, John.
That's
yes,
right.
correct.
Right.
Whether it's a no reserve car or not, there is always 1 or 2 cars that will be a very good deal for somebody. Yes.
Travis, you're the restoration expert, the restoration guy. Can you highlight some of the vehicles here on display this weekend?
I mean, there are some really fantastic cars here, no doubt. The Steelwood collection's incredible. The 47 Marmon Harrington's obviously incredible. The 34 Packard is incredible. I mean, several of the cars that we went through and reviewed. The split window Corvette Resto Mod is just a super neat car, something you can get out and drive. But the Woodies that are here, you've got the XK 140, I believe. You've got obviously the flat floor Jag that you have here, the E-Type. That's a fantastic, sample for something you could either run like it is or restore it. Just looking around, it seems like there's a little bit of something for everybody, and that's great. It's neat to kind of see diversity. It brings in opportunity for younger collectors to maybe get their first car, or for seasoned collectors to maybe put themselves into something different. And I think that's really neat when you bring that kind of collection together. It just gives a lot of opportunity.
Question kind of to all of you, what should buyers/sellers be thinking about going into tomorrow?
Buying a car.
Well, yeah, we hope so.
That's a wrap. No, what I would say, it depends on where you are in the buyer scope. Is this your first car? Are you relatively new to the collector car hobby? Or are you a pretty seasoned collector that's, owned cars, bought, sold, enjoyed? For the people that are newer to it, I would definitely say if you're going to buy a car, buy something that you like. So buy something that every time you walk by it, you like it. You like to see it. You're going to like to drive it. That's going to bring you happiness. Find your price point, what you are allowed to, in your mind, safely do and enjoy, so that it's not a stressor, and enjoy that car and do exactly that. If you're more on the sophisticated investor side of the market, I would say then you absolutely go for the highest quality of whatever market is that you're interested in. And the reason is, no matter what happens in the market, ebbs and flows up and down, if you have one of the very, very best of that mark, it will always bring top of the market at the time. Always. So those are some of the things I think that are really, really important.
I'd like to add one thing
Please.
to that, and especially everybody watching, that this is a serious business, it's investments, but auctions and collector cars are fun. And you've got to know that if you are gonna do this, you need to let yourself have fun. That's part of what it is. And that doesn't mean you get reckless or crazy, but it's a blast. So, I think people really need to, especially even now in today's world, like,
We could all use a
have
little
some
fun right now.
Yeah, have some fun.
One of my criteria is for buying a car for myself personally in my collection. I don't care how pretty it is or how valuable it is. If I can't fit in it comfortably and drive it, no, I kid you not. I drive everything I own. I am big on enjoying your cars. Not everybody is, that's cool. I am. I don't just want art in my garage. I want to get in, turn the key, fire it up and go, because that's what brings me enjoyment and brings me happiness.
It's funny he says that, because when we hopped into that Ferrari the other day, I've got really long legs. Like, my knees were up to my chin. I'm like, well, this is not very comfortable for me just because I got long legs, but I would want to drive it, right? So I get that. That makes sense.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, I'm big on driving everything.
One of the neat things too about the auction experience, and kind of going back to the diversity of things and the fun aspect, is for a brief period of time, you're really getting to see really neat snapshots of our history. The engineering and ingenuity and everything that goes along with that. And it's easy to kind of lose the forest through the trees, or not see the forest through the trees and whatnot. And if you really take a moment when you're at these auctions and go around and read the placards and read the information about it, and kind of put yourself in the shoes of historically what was going on with each and every one of these. As I always say, these cars all have a soul and they have a story to tell, and that's neat as well. And that's part of the fun and the enjoyment, whether you are a new buyer or a seasoned collector. Because when you lose the joy, the fun is out of it. So that's a neat part of this as well.
It's an event, right? So I'm already in my head, like for people that have competed in sports or you perform music or whatever, an auction's the same thing. It's a stage and it's a blast, and it doesn't matter if you're on the auction side, the buying side, the selling side. You kind of have that anticipation and excitement of the night before, like I'm feeling right now.
So are you going to be able to sleep tonight?
Yeah, I'll be able to sleep, but
I'd have
I'm
the
ready
auction
to
right
go.
now if it was up to me. I'm ready to go right now.
When it comes to all these cars that are here this weekend, are you guys able to pick out a favorite that's just like, oh, this one is sweet, I'm excited for it to go up on the auction block? Or is it like, picking out your favorite kid? Is it hard to decide?
I think for me, it's a no-brainer. I mean, I love Packards. I love pre-war
the
American.
Cover photo?
Sure.
Yeah.
And it's not because it's the cover photo. I just love Packards. I love pre-war American. It's just there's nothing new under the sun, and these cars, that's a fantastic example of it. Some of the engineering and ideas that was present in the 1930s, I mean, you find being done today, and I think that car is just absolutely spectacular.
I have trouble picking any one car.
Yeah.
I can sometimes get myself to narrow it down to one era or one type of car. But if I had to do something, it would probably be the Omega Jag. I mean, that's you talk about the specials that racing car got. You talk about stories, cars with stories, the historical standpoint. Jackie Stewart had his butt sitting in that car driving it. I mean, and that's a car you can drive and enjoy all over the place. So that ticks the boxes for me for sure.
You got a favorite, John?
Well, there's a lot of different categories, and I love the 34 Packard. I love pre-war cars, but I think the car I'm most excited for tomorrow is the 18 van, and that's for several reasons.
I get it.
I wasn't there when the 34 Packard was built, or I didn't see it as a little kid. And now I appreciate what it is, and I'd love to own that car, one just like it here in the near future. But I did grow up around the A-Team, and we've been playing around with it earlier this week, and it's just I understand what a lot of our older collector friends feel, because they were there and they their dad had one, or they saw one driving by on the street, and so for that it's like, I mean, this is sweet. So I'm excited at the folks that are interested all over the world, and most of them are younger. They're our age. That'd be Travis.
Are you saying you're young?
Yes,
Not my age.
We're young, you're old.
I say over here on the young couch.
So it's great to see a lot of those 30s, 40s year
The
old.
enthusiasm, yeah.
They're amped for it. They're excited about it, and I know I'm supposed to say one, but also the Vipers. We got so many young collectors that are interested in those Vipers and the 18 van. It's just exciting to see that next generation of collectors and get to know them. And, the commonality is not how old somebody is or which car they're going after, but that we're all excited and passionate about a collectible car that we can use and enjoy. And it's really neat to see people come together and share that. And that's a great feeling, but it's also really neat to be part of that community.
You know, something else too kind of unique. There's a couple of cars that I would say are restoration worthy, if you will. Can you talk to those? Because you're talking about, you know, how there's a car here for everyone, for every buyer, but there's also cars for the buyers looking for a good restore project. And I know we talked about those a little bit, but can you elaborate a little bit more here in closing?
I think the one that really jumps out in my mind first is the 61 E-Type. I mean, that's always going to be blue chip. It's always going to be something. I mean, 265 horsepower, right? You know, just drop top handles, super fun. It's the, you know, if you're going to buy an E-Type, that's kind of one of those that you really set your pin on that and say, one day, right? One day I'm going to own one of these. And because of the condition that it's in, that's just ripe for the picking with the restoration. And that's exciting because it's great as it is, but to really take it back to its full potential is a really neat proposition.
Could one day be tomorrow?
One day could be tomorrow. Hey.
As promised, John, I wanted to get back and touch point on how people can register to bid, where they can come tomorrow, just kind of all of the details, if you will, that go in tomorrow, all the mechanics.
Yep. So everybody's portal, worldwideauctioneers.com, and very clear instructions on your options and the process. Call us. Our client services team is wonderful, and our goal is to make that aspect of it as simple and seamless as possible. And I would encourage everybody, if you're thinking about it, to do it soon. We'd love to get you registered so that we can get you the information. If you're able and you'd like to, certainly come on out or send someone to inspect the car beforehand. But we'll make that super simple so that you can have fun buying cars.
We can do a FaceTime walk around too if somebody wants to see cars, stuff like that. Yeah, so it makes it very, very easy.
And you can bid via the phone as well, right?
Absolutely. Telephone, you can leave a written absentee bid, or you can bid online. We have 3 partner platforms. So that's very simple. But we love to do phone bidding because you get to talk and get to participate. And of course, everybody can participate by watching Worldwide TV. I'm very much looking forward to, you know, the auction's going to be going on as we've introduced, and we're all doing this. Tomorrow's going to be a blast, and we're excited, and you know, certainly grateful for you guys being here. And I think our viewers are going to be.
We're both hosting that tomorrow right here on worldwideauctioneers.com. Let me just ask you this as we're kind of wrapping up and closing. Any final thoughts from all of you as we start to head into tomorrow?
Oh, for me, I would say basically I'm excited to do the auction for several reasons. One, because I'm a car guy and the whole car thing. But for me, I've always equated cars with enjoyment. My whole life growing up, from the first time I helped my dad restore a car in the garage when I was a kid to now to looking at these cars, is that we today in this world are due some fun.
Yes, amen to that.
Period. So that have fun, whether it is at any level you can, whether it's this auction regarding this or not, have some fun. And I hope we can do that. I mean, everybody has a car story, something that they remember. A song comes on. Oh, I remember driving that car, dating this gal, doing that. Like everybody has a car memory of some sort. And I think that this kind of just encapsulates all that. And I want people to have fun.
I think it's a time of community and connection. You know, it's from our team. You know, so many of our everybody on our team works so hard, and they love cars too. And to see them come together and kind of culminate in an event, and then clients, whether it's on the phone, you know, we don't talk to everybody every day, but usually around auction time, there's something there. You get to reconnect with some folks you may haven't talked to for a while. So for me, it's that human interaction, whether it's the folks who will be here in person or again on the telephone. That's what I'm looking forward to, and that's what I'm most excited about.
Final thoughts, Travis?
I mean, you guys have probably gathered through all this. I appreciate these cars so much for the artistry that they are. And I think in a way, any auction, this auction it's an art gallery. This is a celebration of the buyers, the restorers, the original designers, the builders, everything involved in that. And I think that's something that in this industry, we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that there is so much human input that has gone into every single piece that's in this. And that's something that really should be celebrated and never forgotten. They're a mechanical thing, but they are a piece of art. And I think it's really neat to remember the humanity that's involved in that. And I think at a time like this, realizing that in these inanimate objects is really what it's all about for me. Yeah.
Travis, Rod, John, thank you. I'm so excited for tomorrow. Ready to have a little fun, as you say. I think we could all deserve a little bit of that right now. So that does it for us here on Worldwide TV. Don't forget, all the action starts tomorrow at 1 p.m. WorldwideAuctioneers.com. You get a full schedule. You can preview all the cars as we get reared up for tomorrow. I'm Kayla Blakesley. We'll see you then.